Thanks for tuning into the 6-3 podcast. I'm your host, Joel, my co-hosts Isaiah and Ben. It is your fantasy football preview show for all you fantasy fans. Some of you guys got 5 teams. Some of you guys have 1. If you have 1, pay attention. If you have 5, I don't know how you do it. You're playing against yourself every week. So I guess I'm going to ask you guys first, though. How do you believe you should approach your fantasy football draft, and how should you try to build your roster?
So I think a lot depends on PPR versus non-PPR. But at the same time, I'm typically running back heavy. I just feel like the most value, regardless of scoring system, is in running backs, unless you have some stupid like super flex league, which, you don't have, or I've never played in one at least. Running back heavy is what I like to look at. Even guys who are second string. Some of those running backs, the upper tier second string guys, can go relatively early in the draft that I'm drafting in, just because they have value. They're going to vulture touchdowns. They're going to get touches, because especially now, it probably was less so 15 years ago, but there's not really bell cow backs. There's a couple, and those guys go in the first 5 picks of the draft typically. Right. But there's not really just single, other than a few guys, there's not really just one guy that just gets all the carries for a team. So you need a lot of backs. You need a lot of those. And then from there, obviously receivers probably next. And then at that point, you just got to kind of decide, like the draft Joel and I just did, I decided pretty early on, I was like, look, I kind of want Mahomes this year. So I drafted him in the third round. Can't really go wrong there, because you know what you're going to get there, right? So I knew I was going to have the best or highest scoring quarterback more than likely. But it's kind of at that point, it's kind of up to you and what you want and kind of what's going on throughout the draft. But I think, for me, it's a big focus on running backs, and then it's kind of up to you from there, depending on where guys have been picked. Whether you want the best quarterback, whether you're going to go heavy receiver and just pick a QB late. Maybe QB, for some guys, QB is like the last thing they even worry about, because they know there's 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So you're going to get it's not like you're going to get a backup QB. So I don't know, different ways to look at it. I would say definitely focus on running backs first for myself. And then I really enjoy having a high scoring quarterback. I've always tried to, pick one of the upper echelon QBs, just because it gives you a buffer, and when those guys go off, you kind of automatically win that week, even if the other guys struggle. Now you might not have as consistency. The consistency might not be there. The problem with QBs is you could have a really good game, you could throw for 280 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and sometimes that doesn't really amount to that many, points when it comes to fantasy. So that's the issue with QBs, but I think I've always enjoyed having an upper echelon quarterback. So.
Yeah, so I think it's like when I have done fantasy, which I didn't last year, am not this year, but when I have, usually my first 4 or 5, maybe even 6 rounds are going back and forth with wide receiver and running back, with just who is the best available overall, not with who the best available. I'm not going wide receiver no matter what first round. It's okay, if I'm pick 7 in a 12-person league, who is just the best available player right now at this moment of the wide receiver and running back position. I've always played PPR, so wide receiver and running back are valued pretty similarly, unless you can get one of those dual guys. But like you said, Ben, your Alvin Kamaras and Christian McCaffreys, they're gone after the first 5 picks. Because if you're in a PPR league, they could just get so many points. So I just go my first 4 rounds at least, but sometimes 5 or 6 if it's depending on how the draft. I'm just going wide receiver, running back, getting the best ones available possible. I won't go for a quarterback until they start falling like that. Someone always goes for Patrick Mahomes right way, and then there's not a quarterback picked for a while usually. Maybe like Rodgers, but usually like there's tiers of quarterbacks when it comes to fantasy, and like you'll get 4 quarterbacks picked like right behind each other, and then like the rest, it's kind of like once it's like Matt Stafford, Tom Brady, and like some of these guys left, it's kind of like, oh, I don't care which one of those I get. Like, but if someone picks Patrick Mahomes right before you, like, some, like every draft I've ever been in, once a certain position gets picked, everyone picks that position. Like once someone picks the top tight end, then everyone's like, oh, I need a tight end because they're going to start going. So it kind of just depends on how your draft shakes out. If you're not getting one of those top tiers of those positions, though, then like don't do it. Like if all the top tier quarterbacks are gone, don't just pick a quarterback because you feel like you need to. Same with tight ends. But because if someone before you picks Travis Kelce, like the person after you is probably going to pick George Kittle. So like if you want that top tier tight end, like go for it right now. Usually, I don't know. It depends. Sometimes I pick tight end before quarterback if they're like good enough left. Like if everyone's picking quarterbacks and all the good ones are gone, I'll be like, you know what? I'll pick the very best tight end. But it really just depends on what happens when you get into the draft. That's the big thing. It's like if like I've been in drafts where people pick quarterbacks in the first, second, and third round, and it's just going crazy. Then you got to pick a quarterback before round 6 or 7 because they're all going to be gone. Same with tight ends. But I've been in a lot more drafts where it's just wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, running back. And then you just got to stick with it and pick the best ones available. And pick the guys who, like, especially in this first couple rounds, that maybe they're not, like, the very best, but, like, they're just going to get you points every game. If they don't have an injury history and that you know that they are like the clear number 1 on their wide receiving core. Like you got to just get those guys who are consistent. I think consistency is way better than like explosiveness. People always try to get that guy who's going to like get 50 points one week, or they like get him in the waiver wire. It's like, dude, just pick guys who are going to get you 15 points every week and you're going to be fine. Like that's usually how I go. So, that's usually my philosophy. And then I pick no matter what anybody does, no matter what. My last 2 rounds are kicker then defense. Like, do not pick a kicker before that. It's stupid.
So I agree with that on kicker. But there are specific defenses that it's like so how I do it. And here's my example. I came with this to my last draft board, and I made my own tier list. So I had 6 players in my first tier that, I mean, I had the 3rd pick out of 10, but I just in case I had guys going there, and then I had a 2nd tier, 3rd, and the first quarterback I had was in the 6th tier, which was Patrick Mahomes. If you like do it in order, I would have drafted Mahomes in the 5th round at the earliest. And I'm usually the guy that likes to do the game of chicken with the last guy to take a quarterback to usually be the last guy to take a quarterback, because oftentimes I'm so resistant to taking them that all the good ones come off the board. And then, like you said, Isaiah, you get the Tom Brady's and like the Matt Ryans, Matthew Staffords and stuff that kind of go off at the same time because you know they're still going to put 20 to 25 points a week for you. They're not like the elite 35 points a week that you probably get from Mahomes on average. But that's kind of my view. I've always played the game of chicken. I'm going to be the last. I might take my first quarterback in the 15th round. Like, I'm so little concerned with it. And if I have to hop a waiver wire, there's plenty of times on the waiver wire where you're going to see a quarterback on there that's going to likely, based on matchup, hit 20 to 25 points for you. And if that's what you need, that's what you take. So I go running back, wide receivers. Our league was half-point PPR. I feel like if you do a regular PPR, oftentimes it even puts the wide receivers ahead of the running backs. So I feel like half-point kind of evens it out a little bit. So I
think with full point PPR, even like it just, like you said, it puts receivers ahead, and it puts like a different kind of receiver ahead sometimes. Like there's still emphasis obviously on touchdowns and stuff like that, but like I want guys that are just going to catch, like I want Cole Beasley.
Julian Edelman.
Yeah.
Julian Edelman or Wes Welker back in the day.
Remember Mike Furry with the Lions?
Yeah, like it's just like, wow, he had 11 catches for 70 yards. And it's like, yeah, he put up a crap load of points. He didn't really do anything, but he just, you know what I mean? That's what you want in those leagues. Half point, yeah, it levels it a little bit more. And I think it's probably better in all actuality. Yeah. But
so Ben, your first 2 rounds were running back. And then you didn't pick another one again until the 9th round where you took Leonard Fournette when he fell to you there. But like you went wide receiver heavy after you went with Mahomes.
Yep.
I feel like that's a safe bet to do if Mahomes is really there for you in that. Typically I won't go.
I was just really sick of having and I know I had Mahomes in this league last year, but I've had Matt Ryan as my quarterback in almost every league for the past 4 years. So I just was not going to do that again. So, I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm going, if I wait too long, I'm going to have Matt Ryan and I'm just going to be angry a lot. So I was, and there is something to be said. Like I said, if you have the best quarterback, and I've had Rodgers before too, and I've had Brady when he's been crazy good in fantasy before. But if you have the best QB, it gives you a buffer for the most part if he's consistently for a guy like Mahomes is kind of a freak when it comes to fantasy too. The stuff that the offense does is not normal. But if he's able to put up 50, that's 10 extra points I'm probably gaining on average on most other teams' quarterbacks, other than maybe an Aaron Rodgers.
Well, and in your situation, you were drafting second out of 10, and in the 3rd round, you're waiting for that snake draft to come all the way back. You're not getting him in the 4th round.
I'm not going to get him. Yeah. Someone's going to pick him in that probably later in that 3rd round. Someone's going to take him.
Yeah. So that's kind of how you get the value, especially in snake draft situations. If you're a 1st, 2nd, or 9th or 10th, and you know that you're not coming back around for a while, you gotta maybe reach, and that's the hard part. So sometimes people always knock on, having to pick 5th or 6th or 4th, but
sometimes it's better.
It's fine because I actually am one of the few that if I don't get the 1st overall pick, man, then I will happily just sit in the 4th to 6th range, just because I feel like you never really have to reach on anybody. They kind of just fall. The chips fall where they should. Tight ends too. I think in today's NFL, there are 3, maybe 4 tight ends that are going to put up points for you on a regular week. So those are another position that if those 3 or 4 guys are already gone, you can afford to milk it out to the 9th to 12th round even sometimes. In kickers, definitely last, even if it's Justin Tucker. Even Justin Tucker has been consistently one of the best kickers every single year in his reliability. But points-wise, the Ravens don't always give him the same amount of opportunities every year, so he's not always the highest-scoring kicker at the end of the year anyway.
There's also the strategy with kickers just to take Denver's kicker because he's going to have the most 50-yard field goals.
Well, not only does he have a leg, but just the air.
The air.
In Denver.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
And then defense, I took the Bucs defense this year because, we ranked them by far, in a way, the best defense when we went through all the position rankings. Yep. So that already was good with me. But I think in this situation, we ranked the linebackers, but I don't think the linebackers are going to play the difference as much as if you have a good pass, the good line and the good secondary, because those are where the points come. You don't get points from tackles in a game from the linebackers. You get points from the INTs, fumble recoveries, sacks. Yeah. So, or in points allowed. So I guess obviously the linebackers can come into play as the defense all around, but you want those extra points you can get from fumble recoveries and sacks and interceptions. So if you have a good secondary and a good defensive line, the Packers are a great example. Terrible linebacker group, but they're going to sack the quarterback and they're going to pick them off. So I think you try to take those where you can.
Well, there's another.
And I think one thing with this too is you got to look at their schedule with the defenses. That's one of the things you have to look at. If it's a good defense in a bad conference and a bad schedule, with just there's just some teams who don't have a great defense, but they just don't give up many points because they're in all these low scoring games. That's one of the bigger things because you can get an interception here and there and like a couple sacks in a game, but like the points allowed, at least in the leagues I've played, like really kill you. Like if you give up 30 points, you're getting negative points no matter what. Like it doesn't matter what else is going to happen. So sometimes I'm trying to think of an example, but
try to stay away from like an AFC West team. If you got to play the Chiefs twice a year, like that's probably not
both those games.
Like I'm trying to think like the Titans defense was really good because they just played the Colts and the Texans and the Jaguars, and those aren't high scoring teams. And they had like a really low scoring. And I think like one thing with those defenses is like look at changing your defense halfway through the season. So like look at who has the first half schedule that's like super easy, and then bail on them and pick a different team. Like defense is so inconsequential. You're almost never going to be like, oh my gosh, I should have kept that defense, dude. Like it's not like other positions where it's like, man, I really should have kept that.
So I think it changed too. Like I think years ago, you could even pick a defense and special teams based on the special teams, but the kickoffs and punt returns are so mitigated now, both by the rules and just in general, that I don't think that matters as much.
Yeah.
But I remember in the past mostly, and this is mostly like 5 years ago, but there were in the past, like I would have nuts weeks with the defense and special teams because some kick returner like ripped off 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean?
The Bears, they used to have a good defense and they had Devin Hester.
Yeah. So they could put up 25, 30 points with their defense. I mean, so those things used to happen more. I don't think you can really draft a defense and special teams based off that anymore. And I agree with Isaiah. I think you want to just find what kills you is like the 30 points allowed. Like even if they won the game, it's like, man, like they gave up all these points. And I don't know if you even – I don't think you want even a team like the Chiefs defense, right? Because if you have their defense, even if they end up decent, right?
They're going to play relaxed.
They're going to be playing – well, that and they're going to – it's a passing league, and they're going to be up on so many teams. They're going to give up a lot of yards. Yeah. So it's just one of those things where you got to look at, I agree, the schedule, the team. If you're looking at a defense, you got to look at it from a lot of different things. And there's some people that just get a new defense every week. They don't care what their defense is. They just try to pick the best matchup.
Play for the match. If you're playing the Jets, go pick them up if they're on the free agent list, right?
Right. So I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think defense is something you need to necessarily sit there and be like, this is going to make or break my season. But it could make or break a certain week. Depending on what you're looking like.
Right.
So if you guys, obviously we've all done leagues before, but what is your favorite type of league to do? Like what the basic rules of the league and the scoring system, what is the best type of league do you prefer?
So my favorite leagues I've ever done are, I did a 6-team league with my family for 2 years, and it was 1 point PPR. Other than that, like pretty basic scoring. And I loved it because everyone had a really good team. Like everyone had a great team, and it was just super competitive still. Like everyone was in it, had a shot. I think 8 teams would be better because like an 8-team playoff is a lot cooler than a 16 playoff.
Yeah.
But everyone had a shot to beat everyone every single week. Like no one just took over. Like there was not a team. Maybe someone was like really bad and got bad luck, but no one was like really, really good and way better than everybody, and no one was really, really bad in like the punching bag of the league. Like everyone was pretty even, and it was a lot more about like how you're building your team. Like there was a lot of waiver wire play because like everyone has such good teams that you really need to be at like the top of the level. You can't just be like, oh, if I get the 8th seed, I'm just going to make the playoffs. Like it was like, no, everyone wanted to win. So that's my favorite league, but I know that's not for everybody because it's not as terribly competitive as others, but I love it.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good league. Like Ben, when we've done it with Nicole's and Caitlin's family league, when we've done that, like that's fun. It was only an 8-team league, but like there's no money on the line. There's no money on the line. So it also doesn't separate like the experienced fantasy players from like you can be a noob basically and do well in a small team league that everyone gets good players just because everyone's going to get good players. So if your team just kind of shows up every single week,
you could auto draft.
I don't think it shows as much talent. And so if you're doing a money league, I don't think that'd be ideal, but I think that's definitely a lot of fun to like keep an eye on every single week.
I don't know. I like some sort of PPR. I think it's something that, catches are important. I think it's something that, so I do like half point because, if what I would get frustrated with, I remember James White one year, I had him, it was full point PPR, and he had in a game 14 catches for 42 yards, no touchdowns, and he had over 20 points.
Yeah.
It's what?
That feels like Bush League sometimes.
That's kind of stupid. You know what I mean? So half point, fair enough. You still reward the 14 catches, but you're not getting 14 points. You know what I mean? When it's all those catches were behind the line of scrimmage. What are we doing here? So I like half point in that sense. And then I don't know, I like the standard scoring. I've had leagues before where, and my dad plays in a league where this is the case, but I there's a bunch of bonuses for long touchdowns, and there's a bunch of, bonus, you get an extra bonus over, a quarterback throws over 400 yards, you get another 6-point bonus, and you get all these different bonuses, which I guess is kind of fun. But it's I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of that. I just like the standard scoring, but half point PPR. I think that's pretty fair, and I don't think it's I don't think anything's stupid. Nothing seems out of whack in that situation. I do have my other league that I've been in the longest is full point PPR, so I don't hate it, but it just changes the way you draft, changes the way you look at things for sure.
Yeah, I think my favorite was actually done when I kind of did fantasy football in 2008, very casually. I didn't really understand it well, but in 2010, I was invited into a dynasty fantasy league.
Dynasty leagues are cool.
Yeah, and I haven't done one since 2013, and so I did 2010, 2013, and it was a standard league, still a snake draft, but you got to keep 3 people as keepers, and then threw a bunch in, and then you got to do a extra draft. So you did a regular draft, but then you did an extra draft that was just the rookies, and you would do that in the off season, after, right after the draft happened. You have to make it's a 6th round rookie draft. So you're even getting guys that could be, 7th round picks essentially sometimes, or undrafted, and you just kind of got to guess at some of those. But I like doing the 6th round rookie draft. That's cool. June, and then you can obviously cast aside, but you get full dibs on them in a extra bench setting. So that was my favorite one I did. I ended it in 2013 because I was still making gas station cashier money, and you can't really they moved their amount up to $200 buy-in. I was like, okay, I can't do that. So I went out. But what are your dream, if you could do any league that you have not tried yet, what would be the league you'd want to try?
I would like a cool dynasty league, where it's just so long running, and just being in that for so long, where I think that takes more team management and just projection, and just you have to pay a lot of attention to it for sure, which is kind of something that I don't know if I'd have time for right now, but if I was able to, for sure, it would be really fun. Or I've heard of leagues where they're drafting, they're doing that draft that you spoke of, that other draft before the NFL draft, even before too. So they don't even know exactly where they're going to fall. So I've had that before too, where they might just do a 5 or 6 round draft before the NFL draft. So you have a pretty good idea about first round or so, and then it's man, where are these guys even going to go? Are they going to make the team? You could completely screw up and pick a guy who just doesn't make the team. Stuff like that, which would be kind of cool. But dynasty fantasy leagues would be cool, just because it just takes so much projection. You could have a crap team, and then 3 years later, just because of how well you drafted rookie wise, suddenly maybe those rookies are really good. You know what I mean? If you drafted, let's say you drafted Justin Herbert last year in that or something, and then he's just sitting there on your extra bench, and suddenly you're man, this guy might be a top 10 QB, and I just got him on, you know what I mean, and had no idea. So or back in the day, what if you had drafted Tom Brady? You're yeah, I'll take a flyer on this Michigan QB, and he turned into the GOAT. So, you know what I mean? Things like that would be kind of cool if it was like a super – because I've heard of like long-running dynasty leagues, and that'd be kind of cool to be a part of. But I don't know if I'd have time for it.
Yeah.
I'd like to try a keeper league, but I haven't done fantasy, like I said, in 2 years, so I've been out of the game where it's just like to get that into it would take a lot of effort, but I've never done it, and I've always thought it would be cool. Or I've always wondered about an auction draft. Like, I've never engaged with that in the slightest.
Cool.
So I do remember that really bad optic of at ESPN when they were holding up the black players' faces and they had a bunch of white dudes betting on them.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Be a part of an auction league, but yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool just to it doesn't let you have that person in the draft who's just like kind of a vulture on all the best things. Like you have to be smart. Like, it doesn't matter about draft position. You have to be really smart about what you're doing.
Budget. Yeah.
You're allocating your money or your funds for that. Yeah.
Right.
So my dream draft, and it's kind of funny, but I'm on TikTok, and TikTok algorithm has put me on fantasy football TikTok, basically. So I see a lot of fantasy football TikToks that people upload on a regular basis. And today there was a joke one that came across about me setting up my 32 team fantasy football draft. And so like it has like papers lined up, and it shows like his first round is fine, and then he gets to the 6th round, he's drafting Jake Fromm, and then like and then it goes to like the 12th round, and he's like, oh, I don't even know. Like RJ, I saw RJ had also sent that to me too. I'm like, yeah, I already seen that. And he's like, but I told him, I'm like, I would actually want to try that 1 year and do like a 32 team league and see what lands up. Even if it's like a 10 or 12 round, like you're literally lining up people that might get called on a practice squad, or you're taking chances on free agents like Todd Gurley that aren't even in the league right now, or hoping that Alex Smith comes out of retirement. I don't know. You're like really shooting for the stars. And so I think,
and you're doing that by like the 6th round. It's not like you're even like really,
you got to think about it. Your team is probably scoring 54 points a week.
Right.
Like it's going to be super battle tested.
Yeah.
Like doing a 32 team league, I think you're not even going to get to play all of them. So you wouldn't even get to play every team. So that'd be the frustrating part.
I have done a 14 teamer.
That's kind of fun.
Hard. That was hard. That was very hard. But even by like the 8th round, I'm like, I don't know. So if you do like 11 or 12 rounds though on a 14 teamer, then it's pretty much the same. But like, I mean, ours was a 17 round and it was 10. It's a 10 team. So yeah, and
I still feel like we weren't scratching. There were still plenty of players I'd have been happy to take.
Oh, lots. Yeah. I mean, like we talked about most of the time we have to write in somebody on the little beat-ups board, and we have to really. I don't think we did that this year.
No. And Marvin Jones Jr. was still on the board he was the top available free agent, ending the draft, and I feel like he's going to be getting some targets in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
yeah, that was kind of just a joke, but like also I feel like I want to try it once.
I'm not sure how that would work. You might have a week where you score like 20 points.
Even if it's only like a $10 buy-in or even a $20 buy-in, like you're still coming out with money if you got 32 people.
True.
So I mean, it'd just be worth a shot. I don't know. I think I'd probably start prepping for it by now if I'm setting it up for next year, but I might give it a shot. So anywho, I want to go through.
I would hate that.
Yeah, it would be brutal. But I want to go through some players here to kind of keep an eye on your fantasy draft if you've not done one already. So I want to get your opinions on each of them. Name like a couple of guys that you feel like are locks at each position. Let's start with quarterback. Who do you think is for sure putting up points this year?
Obviously like the easy one's Mahomes, but I don't really want to go Mahomes on this. I'm actually going to pick Tom Brady here because of the weapons. They don't really have any holes on that team. So, barring injury or something stupid happening, which is always the case, he's going to probably have 25 points most weeks, right? He doesn't throw interceptions. He has crazy weapons. They've built up the offensive line, so he doesn't really have too many problems with pressure. Yeah, as long as they stay healthy. I mean, we talked about they have 3 very good receivers for sure.
Possibly 4. Yeah.
Possibly 4, but 3.
Scotty Miller, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Scotty Miller's real. I mean, he's good. And then they have 2 good tight ends and some backs that, they can run the ball. I mean, they can run steamroll some teams if they don't stop the run. So it's not like he's, it's all on him either. So I think he's pretty safe. I mean,
Tom Brady's an interesting. I like Tom Brady as a pick there, but like the one reservation is like
he doesn't score in fantasy typically.
He has that prior history, but also like. Yeah, I know he's in a league of his own. He's not Drew Brees, and he's not Ben Roethlisberger. He's not Phillip Rivers, but like he's 44 years old now. At some point, you're worried that arm is just going to fall off. He's an
alien, Joel. He's an alien. It doesn't matter.
I know. So just in case he's not actually an alien, just in case he's not,
sure.
There's that chance.
It's got to happen. Eventually, it's got to turn over, right?
Yeah, you can't. Father Time is undefeated. That's what they always say.
Sure.
So my actually. I'm probably gonna die on this hill, but Aaron Rodgers is a guy that I'm sticking with.
Because he's never not scored.
He's never not scoring, and I know he's had off-season issues, but I feel like he's at least gonna go out on blades of glory, basically, before he says goodbye to the Packers. He's always either playing for that Super Bowl to stay with the Packers, or he's playing to say like this is my final Packers game, and I still have a lot of respect for the fans of Green Bay, even if I'm not a fan of the organization as much. I'm going to give it a final good last season. He still got the best wide receiver in fantasy. And the other guys are concerns like Amari Rodgers and Alan Lazard and Equinemius St. Brown and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So you have concerns there. Robert Tonyan's probably a top 8 to 10 tight end in fantasy as well. And I feel like he's got a running back, Aaron Jones, that's able to catch the ball too. So I think there's guys again there. There's pieces again. He's not the weapons that Tom Brady has by any means, but Aaron Rodgers seems to produce every year. So besides the obvious Mahomes, I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers.
That's fair.
I am going to go with someone who's like, so I think some people think like of locks as.
Don't say Ryan Tannehill. I'll punch you in the face. No.
That guy who's going to like just be the best at his position regardless. And that's not how I kind of filled out my locks. I just picked a guy who's like going to produce. Like he's going to be consistent and like he's not going to be a bust. Might not be like a massive breakout, but he's just like he's on your team. He's just going to get you points every week. So I went with Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
He's just gonna get 20 points. Like he's just gonna be consistent. He's gonna like. You aren't going to have to take him out unless you have a way better quarterback like a Mahomes or a Rodgers, or if it's his bye week. Like, I just think he's going to be there every week doing the same thing over and over again, getting a couple touchdowns, getting a few hundred yards, and just, like, consistent. And he'll have, like, maybe a week where he's really bad and maybe a couple weeks where he's really good, but he's just going to be coasting along the whole season playing well. And they're going to be fighting for a division championship or a division title and a playoff spot. So they're going to be trying every game. And the run game in the Rams is not good. And that may make you think that Matthew Stafford's going to like be a bust because they're going to rely on him so much, but the Lions never had a good running game, and he was able to rise to the occasion. So the offensive line scares me a little bit, but Matthew Stafford's going to have the opportunity. He has the talent, and I think he's just going to be there every single week, being in the 20s, just producing.
It's kind of a spicy pick, but I don't hate it for sure. If you're looking for a guy that's 20 to 25 every week, Stafford's probably only going to miss that mark by one, maybe two times max.
Yeah, and we were like talking about our drafting strategy of like once those top tier quarterbacks are gone, like if you don't want to get one before like the 7th or 8th round, like all of a sudden, oh, Matthew Stafford, I'm totally happy with that in the 8th round.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I just got a bunch of good wide receivers, a good tight end, a bunch of good running backs. Matthew Stafford, consistent.
Yeah, he went in the 12th in our draft, so like he's a guy that you're able to get a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
I like this. So running backs, who do you guys feel like? Now this is interesting because just as a number, there were only 2 running backs last year in the NFL that started every game for their team. Can you name the other one besides Derrick Henry?
Started every game?
Yeah. Is it Nick Chubb? Is it someone I wouldn't think of, or is it someone that's
This is not someone you would think of.
Okay.
Well, Darrell Henderson.
Hey. AFC East, how about that?
AFC East? Is it Le'Veon Bell? That's not the AFC East.
No, that's AFC North.
I don't know.
Oh, he was what? It's Devin Singletary for the Bills.
I'm not surprised. Okay.
Le'Veon Bell is AFC East.
No, he's not. He was AFC North with the Steelers, then he went to AFC West with the Chiefs.
Le'Veon Bell, he was in the Jets, dude.
Oh, I forgot about the Jets. That was like 2 years ago.
Well, he was with the Jets most of last year.
He was in the Jets last year.
Well,
was he? I thought he was with the Chiefs most of the time. Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Yeah. Anywho, yeah. So Henry and Singletary were the only two to get 16 games. Ezekiel Elliott and Josh Jacobs started 15, and then Cook, Montgomery, James Robinson, and Aaron Jones did 14. So out of that, like, we're looking at 4, 6, 8 running backs to have at least 14 games started last year. It's hard to be for sure on running backs when you have running back by committee, or it's just such a brutal position where you're going to get beat up. You're going to face injuries.
So my lock at running back, he does share the backfield with another very good back, but he's the only one that's good at doing what he does out of those two. Nick Chubb.
Okay.
I think he's a lock. I just think he was incredibly consistent last year. Obviously, he's not pass catching, so like you can't PPR spam like Christian McCaffrey where he just catches the ball 15 times. But like he's just such a consistent runner. Like I think he got injured last year, correct?
Yes, for a period of time. Yeah, he was
looking to like compete with Derrick Henry for the lead in yards until Derrick Henry exploded and got injured. But he was like on pace for a lot of yards.
Yeah.
So I just think he's incredibly consistent. So like I said with my quarterbacks locks, it's not a guy who's just going to be the number one in his position every single week in and week out. It's just a guy who's going to be incredibly consistent. So Nick Chubb, he's going to be there every single week.
He'd definitely be a guy that'd be shocked if he ever went under 10 points. He's a running back to me that might even go off a couple times for 35 plus points in the year. But like, if you're looking for a guy that's going to get 14 to 20 points for you every week, I feel like Nick Chubb has that potential for sure.
Yeah.
He just touch the ball. That's his only downside.
Yeah, I would. So I'm going to pick Alvin Kamara for this. And I know that might be spicy, but I think sans Drew Brees now and maybe just a switch in what they're doing, and what they're focusing on as an offense. I think he's actually maybe even going to become more of a focus. He's split a lot of time in the past, and he's still been able to produce. And maybe that's just his thing. Maybe he just can't handle the full, workload, Derrick Henry-esque workload. Nobody can handle a Derrick Henry-esque workload, but a full workload, and that's okay because I think he's always going to produce. He catches the ball so much, and he's obviously a wonderful runner that he's just got that dual aspect. And there's one running back that's better than him at it, and maybe two that are that can maybe sort of compete with him at it. And the only reason I'm not picking McCaffrey here is just the injury scares me, so I don't think I can put him as a lock.
Kamara has his share of injuries.
Yes. But it hasn't been, season-ending or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, even like 2 years ago, I might even put Barkley here, right? But he's had problems.
He's kind of an unknown this year.
He's actually, to me, we can talk about him later. But
yeah,
I think he's up there for my problem, possibly. Yeah.
Okay. My pick this year, it's not spicy, but I think it's the last year where I'd put a good reliance on him, and it's Derrick Henry still.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, obviously – we're going to find out soon what it's like to be overworked and underpaid. They put the ball in his hands 35 times a game, and they're going to burn him out just like Larry Johnson was done with the Chiefs and like Michael Turner was done with the Falcons. Those guys were super good for 2 or 3 years, and we're going to see Henry now in his probably 3rd year of being really good with the Titans. He's still kind of young, but a guy can only take so much punishment, even if you're 6'3", 260. Like, I just think this is the last year that I will take Derrick Henry in the first round. and I took him this year. I took him third overall in our draft because he did me a lot of favors last year to help me finish second in our league last year. I think this is the last year I'm going to take a chance at Derrick Henry. I think one more year of probably healthy, hard running, and then after that, you got to worry about those legs holding up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the only thing with Henry is like he's so big, so it's like if anybody's going to be able to keep holding up, it's probably him. He's so much bigger than him. I mean, even like you look at people talk about Saquon's thighs and everything like that, like. You know, Henry's bigger. Like his thighs might be bigger than Saquon's. Yeah. So, I think I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him to continue to even beyond this year, but I think he's probably the lock of locks just because they are going to just keep giving him the ball. Like that is their team.
Yeah.
Wide
receiver. Who is your lock?
Ooh. I have Stefon Diggs.
He's one of my three that I put down. Yep.
I just like is he going to lead the league in receiving again? Probably not. But like he's just going to do his thing, man. Josh Allen's just going to give him the ball, give him 10 targets a game. That offense just ran so well last year. I don't have any reason to think it won't run really well this year. And I think Stefon Diggs finally found a home where he is just like the odds-on number one receiver, and they treat him that way.
Yeah, and I think Josh Allen's going to keep getting better. Mm-hmm. So I think, if they even get some help beyond him, like they're beyond Diggs, they're going to be in better shape even. Can you pause this real quick? Hold on.
Yeah. Hang on. Yeah, I'll get there.
For receiver.
Yeah. So locks for receivers here.
Yeah, my receiver lock is going to be, and maybe this is just stupid, but I'm just going to say Devonte Adams.
Okay. Yeah. He's one of you guys have listed two of my three, so I
just think he's probably the number one fantasy receiver on most, lists or in most leagues. Diggs is probably close for sure, especially with the year he had last year. But I just think he's just going to get an abundance of targets. He's always open. He's never not open.
He did. He shared the picture of Michael Jordan with Aaron Rodgers. That has to mean something.
Yeah,
like they know they're playing out this year.
Something, I guess. And I just think he's just that good. They've got no. I just don't think he's really got holes, and he's not a huge receiver, so it's not you're sitting there with the most physically imposing receiver possible. But he's only is he 6 feet tall? He might only be like 5'11".
I thought he was 6'1".
Still he's not. It's not like he's Mike Evans, but he produces flat out, and he scores touchdowns too, and I think that's a huge thing. Like. For some receivers that are shorter and more slot guys, like they're not those guys don't always score touchdowns. But he's even a red zone threat just because of how open he is, how good of a route runner he is. So I think it's pretty much a lock. 10-plus touchdowns easy. 1,200 yards plus. You're going to score a lot of points with him.
My lock is Allen Robinson.
Okay.
And I think now they've got three guys that are better than Mitchell Trubisky at getting him the ball.
Are they though? Because Fields couldn't hit the broadside of the barn there the other day.
Yeah, he was pretty rough goings in the first half, and second half he kind of went off. But I don't know. I think Andy Dalton's going to start anyway. So I just think that there's now a serviceable quarterback, been doing it for a long time, that is capable of getting one of the best receivers in football the ball. And there's nobody else really after Allen Robinson. Like Darnell Mooney. That's who you're looking at.
That's kind of an under the radar pick because I don't think people realize how good Allen Robinson actually is.
Yeah.
And then you'll look up and it's like, man, he had like 1,300 yards and 14.
And he gets catches. Yeah. There's games he'll come away with 13 catches. So even in a half point or a full point PPR, that's a huge win. So
he's mucho good.
Tight end. I only have 2 tight ends, so you guys might be able to steal them right away from me.
I mean, Kelsey's the easiest lock in the world.
Yeah, we're probably all on board with Kelsey. I only could put one more in as a lock just because the other one had injuries.
So I don't know if you would consider this guy a sleeper, but who I am, because his wide receiving core is so bad, and because his quarterback has to get.
Oh, you're thinking Hawk Daddy.
I'm thinking of T.J. Hawkinson. He is the only receiver. He's the only receiver. He's the only receiver.
I have him in my sleeper section for sure.
Yeah,
that's why I said maybe you could count him as a sleeper. So if you can count him as a sleeper, I will go. Like, I know he was injured a lot last year, but George Kittle, like he's the.
Well, that's the guy I left off. I put Darren Waller with Travis Kelce. Darren Waller again is like a former wide receiver build. I just feel, and Derek Carr seems to love him. They have something working. So I put Darren Waller and Travis Kelce, but you can make the case for others.
So with George Kittle, I think like obviously injuries, but like we've seen a guy get an injury and then just like not have to deal with it for the rest of his career. Trey Lance is probably going to start there. So you either have Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance starting.
That's already a hot take. You said Trey Lance might start.
Not start, but like end up being.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe.
So those are the two quarterbacks who are going to start for the 49ers this year, Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. You have Jimmy Garoppolo who loves George Kittle, loves him, like made him who he is just because he gives him the ball so much, because he just does. Or you have a rookie who is going to need to rely on a reliable receiver, and that is George Kittle. So I just think no matter who is behind center, George Kittle is going to profit from it. And I just like, again, when it comes to fantasy, like if I'm drafting, I worry about injuries, but if I'm talking about like sleepers and stuff, like I don't worry about it too, just because it's like if he's not injured, he's going to be the best tight end almost every single week.
Yeah. I just think those are the three for sure. I think Waller is almost a receiver. So if you're looking pure fantasy, and you know, he is probably their number one target, in my opinion. He had such a big year last year. The fear with Waller is he kind of came onto the scene last year suddenly, and you know, does he have a kind of a slump this year? Our team's more ready for him this year. I just think he's a kind of a physical freak, so I think they'll be fine. He'll be fine. Kelsey's the easiest pick ever because I think they're just still going to feed him the ball. It's too hard. There's too many weapons on that offense, and Kelce.
You can't cover over top with the speed and wide receiver, and then ignore Kelce. You can't.
Almost a perfectly built offense the way they have it. One, they've got the perfect quarterback for it. And two, it's like you can't keep up with Tyreek Hill. You see what happens when they try to, actually cover Kelce. Tyreek Hill's one-on-one, and he has that first half that he had last year against whoever it was, where he literally is unbelievable. Like, he literally cannot be guarded. You know what I mean? So, I think what teams are going to do is kind of what the Bucs did, and they let Travis Kelce have like 14 catches in the Super Bowl. But for fantasy owners of Travis Kelce, that's fine. So I think he's pretty much a lock.
Yeah, let's go over to busts. Who are guys that you think are picked high that will have a rough season or not the season that people would desire?
Saquon Barkley.
Good pick.
He could go off. I really wouldn't be surprised either way. But I'm leaning – I don't know which way I'm leaning, but I just think there's so much risk there. Not only with the injuries, but it's just running backs sometimes it's just like you got to prove it to me for a couple of years, in my opinion. Just because with running backs, like you just see guys have one-off years, you know what I mean? Or one-off half seasons even. Like Kevin Smith was a good running back for a little while with the Lions. And I mean, come on. Kevin Jones, for example, you know what I mean? Pretty good first year and was decent for a little bit, but you know what I mean? Like those, you see running backs have those years. And Barkley is a physical freak, certainly. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes off, but at the same time, I think there's so much risk there and his team's bad. So that's the other thing. He's a horrible team, and a quarterback that's not really going to help him out a whole lot. They have more weapons now probably on offense than they ever have, at least, since they have had Saquon. But the team is bad. So I would put him on bust watch for sure.
I have Ezekiel Elliott as my running back on bust watch.
Ooh. Tough. Okay, yeah, I get that one.
Yeah.
You would have been
I actually think Tony Pollard is going to have an underrated year.
I like Tony Pollard. I think you would have been Nostradamus if you said this last year, though, with Zeke.
No, I know, yeah.
I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara.
Okay.
I think he is probably he's my favorite running back in the league. I love Alvin Kamara. I always try to pick him in fantasy, even when he was a rookie. Or not when he was a rookie. Like, I got him off waivers when he was a rookie right away. I've always liked him a lot. Man, that quarterback situation, like, they're just going to hone in on Kamara. Like, Kamara's going to be, like, who the Saints look to get them out of, like, a slump. They're going to be like, yeah, I take the ball and go do something crazy. And I don't see it happening this year. I think he's going to take a step back, big step back.
Okay.
But then again, like, they might just use him if you're in a PPR league, you might just get like 5 dump off screens a game and take him 50 yards because he does that.
Yeah.
My other position busts I have Kyler Murray actually as a bust, despite all his offensive weapons and his rushing ability. I just don't think he's overall a great quarterback. I still think he's going to make poor decisions because he can't see over his offensive line. And then obviously I mentioned J.K. Dobbins is another people are reliable on, but I think the run game is so hit and miss in Baltimore that there's going to be 3 running backs that get the ball, and Lamar Jackson's already hogging the ball. So I think that's a guy that may have his numbers.
I don't think a Baltimore running back is a good pick unless it's late.
Yeah.
Then
J.K. Dobbins after the 10th round doesn't hurt my feelings, but I also have Keenan Allen now. I think he's finally going to have a rough year. And then I have Kyle Pitts as people are using. It's just a rookie tight end hasn't been good since Jeremy Shockey in 2002. Mm-hmm. So I'm not jumping up and down. I know they'll probably try to use him like the Raiders used Darren Waller because I think that's probably the closest comp in today's NFL. But I don't see immaculate success, and people are often taking him as the 3rd to 5th tight end, and I don't think he's going to put up 3rd to 5th tight end numbers.
Yeah, I would like Pitts. Like, I would draft Pitts next year. I would already say I would draft Pitts next year. I just don't think he's going to be – I think he's going to be good. He's going to have flashes. He's going to have games where it's like, this is why we drafted him, But it's just like you said. I mean, if they're especially if they're going to ask him to do any tight end things, like he's going to struggle with that.
He might just get injured because he tries to block someone.
Yeah.
He didn't block in college. He didn't block in college very much. Like,
so
come on.
The rest of my busts, I have 2 quarterbacks and a tight end.
Okay.
Matt Ryan.
I have him on my bust list. Yeah.
I just think the Falcons' offense is going to be anemic this year. I think it's going to be terrible.
He's
old.
I
don't think they know what they're doing. And like you said, Kyle Pitts is like I just don't see anything on that offense that I like. Jalen Hurts is my second one. I think people are freaking out about him because he finally got the starting position. He looked – I mean, in comparison to Carson Wentz, he looked really good last year. But, like, again, I just don't think the Eagles are going to do much. Like, I don't think that offense is going to really be that great. Like, I think he'll be a 15-point scoring quarterback, and that's pretty much it. Like, they're going to be in a lot of low-scoring games. They're going to be in a lot of, like, duke-it-out battles that just look ugly. Like, they're going to be in that, like, 1 o'clock slot, that game that just doesn't show up on NFL Red Zone. And then my tight end was Robert Tonyan.
Ooh, okay.
I think Aaron Rodgers liked him a lot last year, and he's just going to forget about him because Aaron Rodgers is a jerk.
I think it wouldn't surprise me if some random other dude from the Packers that tight end just because
that's the tough thing with the receiving core is just like it's Devonte Adams and all these dudes.
Yeah.
So like Aaron Rodgers just be like, you know what? I actually like this guy more. They added Randall Cobb to be like a secure cat. Like Robert Tonyan was often like that. Like Aaron Rodgers could just like throw the ball to him to like trust him because he's a tight end, and that's how a lot of tight ends are used. Like Randall Cobb is a sure set of hands for Aaron Rodgers, so that takes away some of those areas. And then my last bust, which goes without saying, is any receiver on the Lions.
Ooh,
all of them.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah.
Well, we didn't even have any get
better
drafted.
than expected.
We didn't have any get drafted in our league.
Exactly.
No wide receivers for the Lions got drafted.
And then I had to add to my locks. Anybody on the Chiefs' offense is a lock.
Demarcus Robinson.
Just anybody.
I've had him before, and I've had him have like 15 points once.
Any of the normal names. So Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, McCall Hardman even as like a third, like a flex position or a backup wide receiver. Even like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is also like a backup or something if you just want to throw him in 1 week to fill in for a bye week. Like everyone in their offense just produces. It just produces.
Okay. All right. Who do you guys have as sleepers or late round picks to target?
I picked a lot of guys that I took a flyer on a little bit. I
liked some of yours. You were the ballsiest guy in our draft.
Yep. I really like Donovan Peoples-Jones, and I know it's the Michigan thing here, but I really think he's going to be their third receiver. And if they just decide, screw you, Odell, or vice versa at some point, because it's Odell, I think he's going to be prominent. I think obviously you got Jarvis Landry there too, but he has all the physical skills to be really good. The worry is that they have two really good running backs and they might not really throw the ball. Because Baker Mayfield, I think he threw the ball like the fourth least out of any QB in the league. But if he takes advantage of opportunities and ends up scoring like 6 to 7 touchdowns this year, I think that counts as a pretty solid sleeper. Especially if he's on a roster and you're playing him when he in those weeks. So I wouldn't be surprised. Now, like I said, if they're just very run heavy, which they're going to be run heavy, but if they're very run heavy, 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends all day long, then DPJ is not going to get as much of a look. But he even had some moments last year where he was good. Like he was out there a lot, especially mid-year when they had some injuries. Like he was very good at certain points last year. And by all accounts, he's had a really good camp. So I think he's my sleeper for sure.
Mm-hmm. I have AJ Dillon as a sleeper. Mm-hmm. I just think I don't think. Gosh, why can't I think of the other guy's name?
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones. I just don't think he's gonna be this massive every down back. I think AJ Dillon's gonna get a large play, and I think I don't know, the Packers have always had that with Aaron Jones, where the second string running back or his backup pass catcher. Yeah, just all of a sudden they just give him the ball the whole game, and they forget Aaron Jones exists. I think that's happening less, but I think they're still very much by committee. My real sleeper, so I'm trying to pick I tried to pick a lion for every position, or every category. My sleeper is DeAndre Swift.
Yeah. Yep.
I just he's going to get a lot of opportunity. That running back room in general is going to, but again, it's going to be a bit by committee, but he's the definite number one in that room. And I just think, I think he's going to do really well if he doesn't get injured.
He went in the mid-third round in our draft, so I kind of feel like that's where he should go anyway. But I don't hate that. If he has a healthy year, there's a guy
that's the part
easily be a running back, a high running back number 2. I have so many, but if I had to pick a line, I'm actually saying Amon-Ra St. Brown.
He's by all accounts in camp, he's been easily their best receiver, which can be taken 2 different ways. Can be taken oh sweet, rookie's doing really well, or oh crap, the Lions receivers really suck, which is probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, even watching just preseason, every chance he got, he caught the ball. There weren't drops. It looked like he ran some pretty strong routes, even juke defensive back. So I don't know. He shows athleticism, talent, and obviously raw emotion. And I think he's going to get in some defensive backs' heads this year.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that's the only reason I put him as my one line I'll put in here. But I've got I mean, if we're going by where they're drafted, I think Dak Prescott's due to go off. I think Joe Burrow could go off. And if Deshaun Watson's stuff get cleared, Deshaun Watson is a sleeper to take late round 2. Running back sleepers, Austin Eckler, David Montgomery, Mike Davis, Samaje Perine, Xavier Jones, and Justin Jackson.
Any backs, especially late, I always like the backs that are receiver threats. Like those are the backs that like I like. That's why I picked Chris Evans, even though it was way late. Like he could fit in there with, especially if they have an injury near the top of their running back room. Like he has ability. There's a reason he's drafted, and the man was drafted when he barely played this year. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he has, guys like that are the guys I really like, just because it's like, they could have a game where like they catch a screen pass and like Isaiah said, ripped off for a 50-yard gain for a touchdown. It's like, wow, suddenly they got like 10 points just like that. So those are guys that I really like to take late for sure.
Yeah, I got wide receivers Kenny Golladay, Jerry Jeudy, Josh Palmer, Marvin Jones Jr., Michael Pittman Jr., Devonte Parker, and then I said Amon-Ra St. Brown. So those are just a few guys. And I took Josh Palmer as my last pick around. I don't think Keenan Allen's going to do great this year, and I think Justin Herbert's going to look to find a young receiver that he can grow with for the next 3-4 years for sure with him while he's doing well and starting in Los Angeles. So I took a flyer on Josh Palmer. I also liked him out of Tennessee in the draft this year. Devonte Parker is the other highest one I have. He wasn't even drafted in our league, and he's still on the free agent board.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but I think he's the best receiver sitting on that board right now, and I've kind of thought about benching Palmer for Parker. I don't, because you don't know what you're going to get with Palmer, whereas Parker, the last 2 years, with his quarterback situation being Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua Tagovailoa, still putting up good numbers. Still has been pretty clutch. Seems like a reliable receiving threat. And Jalen Waddle is also going to have rookie hiccups. So it's like Devonte Parker's your obvious number 2 after him. So it's like you have Jalen Waddle listed as 1. So I think Devonte Parker is actually a really good wide receiver to get late rounds, if even on the free agent waiver wire after the draft.
Yeah. I had as my only wide receiver sleeper was Jerry Jeudy.
Yep, I have him on my
I think he's going to be very good. I think one of the things that makes me think he's going to be really good is that I watched this clip of them having to guess their Madden ratings, the Denver Broncos, and he was like joking about how many drops he had last year. So he's not bitter. He knows it's a problem, and I think he's just going to really improve. And I think he's got opportunity too. Like Cortland Sutton's their number 1, but he's not a bygone, oh my gosh, he's so good, he's going to take number 1 reps all the time. Jerry Jeudy has space to move into that role more than just, I'm always going to be second fiddle to this guy.
Yeah, the concern is who's throwing him the football, Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, yeah.
But again, I know it's it's not a number 1 or number 2 guy, but your flex might really be good some weeks. If you just know that they're playing a weak secondary or a weak defensive line, they're going to be able to get him the ball. And I love Teddy Bridgewater, so don't speak ill of his name.
With all those amazing receivers from Alabama these past couple of years, like Waddle, Henry Ruggs, obviously Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, odds on by all accounts, was the best one of every single one of them. Even obviously Devontae Smith won the Heisman last year, but Jeudy was just incredible from just a pure speed, route running, all across the board. Jerry Jeudy
Amari Cooper
considered the best one. Amari Cooper was years ago. He doesn't count.
I don't know how far back we were going.
Yeah. So
my last sleeper is the Browns defense. Is my last sleeper. Okay. I think their defense is incredible. I think they play a lot of games that aren't going to score very high. The AFC North has never been known for its high-scoring shootouts. I think they're going to have a very good defense this year. They're good everywhere.
They're going to force turnovers and get sacks, so they're probably going to score at points.
So my defense is actually the Green Bay Packers. They weren't even drafted in our league, but like I mentioned earlier, they have a crazy good defensive line, crazy good secondary. They're really bad at linebacker, but they play in the NFC North where they get to play 2 times a year, the Vikings bad offense, the Bears bad offense, and the Lions bad offense.
True.
All that stuff screams to me like you're going to get your sacks, you're going to get your INTs because of these rookie quarterbacks or new quarterbacks in the situation or potential COVID issues with Minnesota Vikings. Like, there are lots of things that are at play here for the Green Bay Packers to be successful at that in that aspect. And I mean, if I include a tight end here, I kind of want to say Mike Gesicki is my sleeper tight end.
I like Mike Gesicki.
He went in the 13th round in our draft, so
it's probably a good spot for him. But
yeah, I wouldn't take him much higher than 10, but if he falls to you in 12 or 13, definitely make a run. So we'll talk about, we're going to cover rookies too this week, but we can talk about rookies to look out for in our NFL preview just with time. So